bing. And yeah, so I upgraded the Houdini that I'm using here. This is 195368. I just pulled one of the daily builds, and basically these, it fixes, like there was a high DPI issue. So if you select text, your cursor will actually go where you're clicking. Previously, in the first production build for Houdini 19.5, there was like a error, but now you can get it actually lines up again or whatever. I was getting too impatient and couldn't wait for another production build, so that error was driving me insane. But yeah, so we can just go ahead and get started. Let's just go right into let's get rid of all this stuff and go right into the stage. Skill MTN, how's it going in Vienna? We're getting some rain here, I think, coming up this week in Portugal. Let's look at the forecast, and it looks like the next 4 days are all rain. Oh, they just upgraded the production build. So I got lucky and selected the one that is the actual production build. Okay, so we have this SOP geometry, and there's a few different ways you can kind of set up instancing. Maybe we just do a box or something like that. We'll get our Solaris scene graph. This is just a really good way to, it's kind of like the outliner in Maya, where if you're working at the object level over here and you did like Shift W, this would expand out in a similar way, but you can just see kind of the relationships and what objects you have going on and some extra information about it. So there's a few different ways to set up, I guess, what we call instancing. One of them is this duplicate, and that kind of works like the copy and transform SOP. And then you have some options as well for kind of what to make these. Basically with USD or Solaris, they have different ways to call things instances, like whether it's a reference for them as a copy, or like it's all kind of different terminology for the same stuff. You building all your scenes in LOPS now? It depends what I'm doing, but in general, I'm just working in SOPs so much of the time that it doesn't really matter too much. Like if you make stuff in here, I don't know, the majority of the time I'm just doing modeling or procedural modeling or simulations, and it's easy to import from one place to the other. I've been thinking about doing more stuff in Solaris and giving it a test, but I'm not 100% there yet. Sometimes I'll just work with Redshift at the object level. I was doing some tests with Redshift with that random walk scattering. It's pretty cool. But yeah, this is basically one way to do instancing, but it's, as you can see, it's like not, you can just kind of make simple lattices, like repeating shapes. So it's not super nice. I think the best way, what I would usually recommend is like this copy to points, this instancer. And this is more of an equivalent of, like, in the past we were doing this instance node in the object context, and you would do point instancing, and you would put points inside of here, and then your geometry would get instanced onto those points, and it would inherit attributes, so you could use transform attributes to mess around with it. So that's what this copy to points node or LOP node lets you do. So yeah, we'll just give it a test. Whenever I'm like doing new stuff, I'll usually start with a very simple scene, just make sure I know exactly what's going on. So yeah, and then the way you can set this up by default, it's kind of like that instancer or the instance object. If you double click, you see it just has a single point in here. And then the prototype is like basically the instance. That's like a USD terminology. And that's what you basically want to copy onto those points. Extra nodes, good to see you. So we can, I think, just put it into the second input like that. And it doesn't really look like anything changed, but that's just because we only have one point inside of here. So let's pin just the viewer at this level, and I'm gonna just switch this to a grid. And then when I do that, you can see we're automatically getting all of those grids instanced onto the, all of the boxes instanced onto the grid. So basically however many points you have, if we go back inside, let's just disable the higher level. This is the geometry, so it doesn't matter if it's connected to geometry or if it's just unconnected, but that's what you'll be instancing. And then we can maybe go with the tube and do something similar with that. So I'm just gonna make it flat and maybe add another thing there. And then if we want to make sure that that middle, the center point, is consolidated, we can just use the fuse. Otherwise there will be a bunch of instances on there. And then we can go back up here. I'm going to pin the viewer again and just get rid of the other stuff. And we can make this a little bit bigger, I think. So now we have just a little bit more interesting arrangement. That's the main benefit of this copy to points method, is you set up your instances and you can lay them out with any pattern, anything like that. It's very similar to the copy SOP or working with packed disk primitives and all that stuff. So let's use this polyframe node, and if we play around with these attributes that we're assigning, like if we switch this over here to tangent, you can see that we're able to influence the direction of things using the normals. Very similar to the copy SOP, this copy to points LOP will look for those similar transform attributes. Additionally, we can use an attribute randomize and put this in, and let's do just one dimension. We can change this to P scale, and then we have our uniform scale that we can adjust. Alkama, good to see you again. So that's pretty cool. We're able to get some interesting variations and stuff like that, even though we're just using the same like starting shape. So that makes sense so far. So we'll keep this, maybe we'll try it with Karma real quick just to make sure we know what's going on. Let's do that. We'll put a grid in. Make the grid a little bit bigger. And these things, if we want to set them above the origin, we can just shift them up by 0.5. And that should, maybe we need to do a full unit. So now they're all stacked up like that. Maybe we want a quick little light. We have some kind of Stonehenge or something like that. Some ancient ruins. I think we want this exposure a little bit higher. And we'll put in a camera. And then if you want to, you can try kind of pushing this a lot further. So you can crank these settings up quite a bit. And I'm just going to go into the black background. You can see it's still performing pretty fast. Maybe let's go into the XPU, see if that's giving us a similar result. And then we can increase even this diffuse limit. That's always makes things look pretty nice with the instancing and all the kind of surfaces that are close to each other and stuff like that. So it's pretty powerful. Let's maybe push it a little bit more. See what happens here. Pushed it too much. Okay. So I think we want these overall scale maybe a little bit smaller. And yeah, I might just leave this where it is. But you get the idea maybe if you're ever making the satellite or solar arrays. Like they had some at the intro, the title scenes of Blade Runner. But in the desert, they have them in these circular patterns and stuff like that. So you get the idea if you're making something like this, that'd be a pretty cool thing to test out with the orientations of these solar panels. I don't know, they're trying to bounce the light off of this. I don't know either. I guess it's like a big dish to collect all the light or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Houdini streams and police sirens. You guys could hear that siren coming through. So my window's open. But yeah, that's maybe an interesting thing. I'll just put this, save it, and we can do the scene share. You should see this pop up. There it is. Yeah, and then we'll just go ahead with a little bit more advanced thing. I'm going to get out of Karma so we don't have the GPU always ticking away. It's the Cinema 4D police coming for you. I think I had a I had one of these Houdini splash screens that was kind of related. Oh, here it is. Where did it go? So this is like the Houdini user, and it's all the other software packages of try to slow you down, stop you. Okay. So yeah, we'll just get back into the Houdini GL view, and this will just let us run things a little bit quicker. Yes, this is Linux. I'm just using Linux Mint. For Houdini, I think it's a little bit more optimized for some things. I'm just looking at this cube. I don't know why they kind of draw the normals like that. It's like a classic Houdini GL bug or whatever, but we'll just move on. So yeah, I'll just leave this chain over here, and we can do another SOP create. And I'm just going to start working inside of here. We can unpin the view, and I'll just save this as a new version or thing in case something goes wrong. We'll start again with a grid, and this time I'm going to use the labs, one of the labs nodes, labs lot subdivide. So this one's pretty cool. So other people have made some similar stuff, like HTAs for this, but the labs one is cool because it's built in, or like will come with Houdini now if you add it when you're installing Houdini or whatever. So yeah, this is just a pretty quick way to do these kind of panelings or things like that. And you can just generally get a pretty good arrangement or layout or something like that pretty quickly. So it's just a pretty useful way to make these kind of grid patterns. You can even animate some of these parameters to have interesting effects and stuff like that as well. And then I'm going to try the polyexpand 2D. La Galactique, good to see you. And I'm going to try to just shrink these surfaces a little bit. I think we need to do that inside of a for loop. So this is going to iterate over each face one at a time. I think this polyexpand works better when you're just sending it one polygon or one face at a time. Let's go back into curves, just the insides, turn off iterations, the isolate iteration, and now we have just a little bit of gap or filling between all of those. So that's pretty cool. We can as well add another layer of like complexity or detail or something like that. In this case, we might even want to do more iterations. Maybe something like that. Maybe even a little bit more. And then let's maybe do this attribute randomize. Justin Jameson, thank you for gifting 1 sub to Tweak. I appreciate it. So let's do a random value now per primitive. And then we'll do this kind of special value. Just a single dimension, or just black and white, or like a single channel. And I'm going to use zscale. And we can do the, whoops, I'm going to do the polyextrude. So the polyextrude node is a little special that if you go to local control, it already has these attributes kind of built in, or that it's expecting, that you can use to influence certain aspects of this. So if I want to do distance, it's now extruding based off of the random values that this node generated. If we turn that off, you can see it's all just getting the same value, but we can add some more variation or complexity or stuff that way. And we might want these to have caps on the other side. So it's pretty cool. I might play around with these min-max settings as well. So maybe the variation is just much more subtle. And we'll put these back kind of down there or something. And then another thing you can do if you want just a little bit of extra control, you can also use this primitive properties. If you do transformation, you can kind of do, this is like a less expensive or less computationally heavy version of the polyexpand, or you can do aspects of the polyexpand 2D with it. And if I unique these faces so that they're not connected, you can see we're doing, you can scale these faces down a little bit. It doesn't give you, it gives you a different result than the polyexpand. This will keep basically uniform gaps in between everything. And this will just apply basically an overall scale. But it's pretty useful. You can do even along a certain direction or something like that. So definitely a nice thing to know about, that it's in there and it's like a possibility or something like that. You can even do like rotations and everything like that. That's pretty cool as well. Off-topic question: are the Redshift material presets gone in the new version in the Redshift material builder? I think they are. I was looking through them earlier today and I didn't see them. But yeah, I was messing around with that. Where did I put this? That random walk subsurface stuff is pretty cool. You definitely get a lot better results on like the shape of the mesh and everything like that, whereas before it was just very uniform. It was like a blur. You couldn't get the detail in the nice areas or whatever. So yeah, I was playing with that and I noticed they didn't have the that thing, but if you maybe look at the like Autodesk standard surface, I think it's all, everyone's kind of basing their settings and stuff like that off of this, and somewhere people have kind of published, I don't remember where it is. I'll try to see if I remember later, but somewhere, it might have been on the Arnold documentation or something, but there was a set of like 20 different material settings that were kind of published or put forward for presets. But yeah, I don't know if Maxon or the Redshift team is planning on bringing those presets nice. Some of them were kind of useful, but I think like the plastic one I was using a little bit, but a lot of them I'd kind of given up on. Yeah, they're still on the old material. But yeah, I don't, even with this material palette, like there's some really weird old ways that is still built into Houdini that I don't even know what happens if you click these buttons anymore. Like a lot of these are just specific to Mantra or very old shaders and stuff like that. I don't know why they are still including it or whatever. Get rid of some of that other stuff. Oh, too much. Hoi, good to see you. Let's get rid of the paint tabs. Okay. So yeah, you can do rotations with this, and you could even do random. Let's get this into the dark mode. You can do random rotations per per element or per face as well. So you can use this at prim num, and this will basically increment, or it's basically the number of the face. So like this one here is multiplying negative 45 by 397. So everything's getting multiplied in 45-degree increment of their current face value. You got a segmentation fault just trying to do this math? I don't know. A lot of those random string of numbers seg fault, I don't know. Sometimes I think it might be hardware related or like viewport related, like it's trying to draw some weird geometry. I'm not 100% sure. Usually they aren't that helpful of logs that it will dump when you get those kind of errors. So you can do the random function, and now basically each of these will get a random value between 0 and 1 instead of just the number of the polygon. And then maybe we want to multiply this by 360. So you have like a full rotation. Maybe we want to subtract half from this. So now these values should be going between negative 0.5 and positive 0.5. Yeah, the Lot subdivision is useful for a ton of things. I think even fracturing, or like, I don't know, any kind of it can definitely be used for a lot of cool things. Like if you basically take these and you can do extract centroid, you can get, depending on how much you crank these settings, but you can get interesting like distributions of points and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely super useful. So yeah, I'm just offsetting this here. Basically, we want these numbers to go between negative 0.5 and 0.5. So we have equal amounts, positive and negative directions. And then if I just want to do like a slight jitter of the rotations, you can try a new seed or a new random value like that. But this is just a subtle kind of like randomization of their orientations. So let's put that there. We can shrink the other one. And then let's see where we are. So let's just go a little bit higher, maybe back up to 0.9 there. And I'm going to do the bevel. Now we have a bunch of gems. We're at the jeweler's booth. He's just rolled out his table. All these expensive gems. And I usually go to actually a pretty small number. But basically, if you're going to subdivide or smooth these, you usually want something to kind of hold the edge there. And then you can add a subdivision. And the last thing you usually want to do is with the normal, you want these to be by face area. And then you have nice hard edge, but smooth. Like it makes a difference for sure. If we look at that and turn it off, like you catch a little bit of a speck highlight, which just definitely makes things feel more realistic or just more detailed. Okay. You doing some similar R&D? Oh, that's pretty cool. This was all with Labs Subdivision. But yeah, that spreading stuff is pretty cool. I think this guy, N Daniels, he's on Twitter. Custom Vex, that's even more impressive. He was making some things like that were like these boxes. I don't know if I did it all right. Oh, I skipped it. I think that's it. I'm not 100%. But yeah, the other one is Jake Rice. He had something with a box that was shifting around this one here. But yeah, definitely there's tons of potential for cool things animating those subdivisions and scales, all that kind of stuff. Pretty cool. High Density Zero, how's it going? Yeah, the texture mapping or projection stuff is always kind of hard to, it's tricky to get right because it's like it's either gonna slide and distort or you have it regular or whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna make a box as well, and I'm gonna put it in a little bit higher in the chain here. Let's see, so I think this was 10 by 10 grid we started out with. So you can make this 10 by 10. And then let's just put it in. So I'm just filling in these gaps, like the holes a little bit. I'm going to use the match size so that we set that to maximum. We'll know it will be directly below everything. So then we're not penetrating or like sticking stuff through that. These other ones, I'm just going to turn them off. So it's just the height or the Y coordinate that I wanted to update. So this, it might be like our USD prototype. Basically the object that we're going to be instancing, or we'll shuffle some of these around and maybe try it out. Sugar-free, hola, bem-vindo. And I'm going to work over here as well, just on these things. And let's try something here. We'll do the for each primitive again. And then this time I'm going to take each of these and turn them just into boxes. And then we can use a minimum size of maybe 0.2. So we're kind of doing extrusion. But if we make just a single box over here, I think we want this to be just polygon. Let's go back into a single pass, and then we can try this extract transform. So let's see what kind of attributes we can get here. So these standard instance attributes are nice. I mean, you can use the other more advanced ones and they'll still work, but they're a little bit trickier to manipulate. So these should work out of the box with Solaris, which is pretty cool. But yeah, basically, if we put a copy to points at the end here and do this and this, what we've basically done is just converted that grid to a single point that has attributes that represent its orientation and scale and everything like that. So if we go for all of them, we can do that. And we can even, if we pack this other input over here, put it there. And I'm just going to scale it down quite a bit as well. Maybe if we do the D key, wire overpacked geometry. You can kind of see what we're doing. So we're basically able to keep distributing more and more of these shapes. So basically kind of some recursion, or like just doing the same operation but at many different times or whatever. So yeah, if we wanted to do a different subdivision density or style over here, we could do that as well. And all of these things would get scaled, would apply as well, which is pretty cool. So we basically now have a point cloud with transforms and this mesh, or this set of boxes here that we're going to be instancing. So maybe I'll leave this connected, but I'm going to add maybe this output node, and we'll call this the instance points. I'm just going to keep the out at the start. I'm going to set this to the other index 1 for output. And then over here we'll have index 0. And this one, we'll just call this the instance shape. So basically I want to bring this information into Solaris. We're already working in a SOP create node, but if we want to have the copy to points, we want to grab those instance points from the other thing. We can, from the other network or the other node, we can get them more easily that way. So we should be able to do an object merge. And then if we go up here, so this is why I was keeping the out, so that they would be at the top of this long list. We can get the instance points. Maybe we want a relative path. Uh-oh. Might be, might have messed up the transforms at some point. So I think, I'm not 100% sure if there's a different coordinate space kind of stuff happening, like the up axis is different in SOPs versus Solaris. try pinning the view right here. Okay, I think I might know what's happening. Maybe part of what's happening. Oof. Not that one. Gabriel Kadush, how's it going? So I basically think that these coordinates got messed up, like they're in the wrong space or something like that. So I'm just trying to move them around a little bit. I'm not sure how they're getting so flat. All right, I'm gonna give up. Is this? It should be. I don't know. I remember reading some stuff that maybe it's I think it's the same, but I think we can even simplify this down even more. So I'm just gonna get rid of these, and we're back to packed geometry. And we could actually, on this note here, when we do import from SOPs, if we look at the primitive definitions here, you can actually set up with packed primitives to use a point instancer the same way if you want. So now this is just redistributing them. It should be the same way. I think the one thing you want is basically an attribute it can use to partition these. So I think at the end, if you just use assemble, this is going to be making a unique piece number, and then up at the level up here under the path attributes, I think depending on how you're bringing them in, whether it's native instances or like that, either one should work. Let's save it before it crashes, and let's see if Karma can work okay with it. So I'm going to put a light somewhere in here. So just have it going across most of the stuff. And then we can add the camera. So maybe with these like smaller ones are starting to cross over is an interesting area. Just some differentiation in size or shape or whatever. Maybe we want this camera a little bit lower. I'm just going to make sure the lens is normal. I don't know why sometimes you get these crazy values, but sometimes that can mess up the depth of field and stuff like that. Okay, so something like this should be a pretty good starting point. Vegan nuts, good to see you. Now I'm going to go back into GL for a second. And I think the nice thing here is that we can still work up, kind of up the chain, but still mess around with this stuff. It's going all right. Still battling with karma. It throws me some curveballs every now and then. Maybe we want some some shorter ones. Maybe a little bit more variation. I don't know, it could be, I'm gonna maybe switch this to the ramp. Let's try maybe where most of them are pretty short, but we don't really want any of them at 0. So we'll make some minimum. And worked on this little piece, the Apple Watch Ultra reveal. Ah, yeah, the threads and stitching and stuff like that they did for the watch looked really good. You might have been at Frame Store or Method. So let's try adding maybe even more iterations. It's pretty cool. You can even try different seeds. I think some of this stuff you may need to reset. You reset the viewport. I don't know, it seemed like it wasn't pulling the changes in at first. Ah, the mill. Yeah, that was a pretty good little like short film that they did. Okay, so something somewhat interesting is happening there. You can see if we make more iterations of these instant point cloud. Starting to get more detail. Maybe with this light, I was playing around with some of the these shaping like parameters or whatever. You can start to get some interesting effects and stuff with them. Good resources on SideFX. Yeah, I haven't seen that many recently. You thinking more for hair grooming and hair things like that, or more like cloth character like cloth effects and stuff like that? I think there's some hair and grooming ones, but I don't know how up to date there are. I'll see if I can dig any of them up, but there was, I don't know if it might have been like a Nomen workshop. But yeah, those are definitely harder to come by. I think it's, I don't know, it's a difficult thing to teach, I think, because you need as like an input like nice animations and models and stuff like that to be working with, and then I think it's also just like a much higher specialty. But yeah, we'll get another viewer going down here. I'm gonna go back into the GL view and then into the camera here. So this way we can light to the camera a little bit more quickly or easily, interactively maybe. So we'll kind of have this beam going across the surface. Bing, bing, bing. Maybe play around with that spread. If we want to play around with that more, probably want to be in the actual Karma view to see what these settings and stuff are doing. So that's pretty cool. We might want to add the environment light. Environ. Then I'm usually pulling just the material X ones, so it's less data to like redistribute or package up, or it should guaranteed work on everyone's Houdini. All right. So just some ambient light, fill light or something like that. Get back into the camera. I'm going to turn off these other guides and stuff. Let's do our depth of field. Where did it go? So I think this way is pretty cool. I don't know if you can actually adjust. Maybe you can. Still not as good. I don't know. I like being just able to click on the pixels or whatever. But I guess you can do some UI adjustments of the camera, like focal plane like that. Maybe we want some more light. Maybe let's try like a rim. kind of light. I don't know how well it's going to work. But I kind of spent that extra time putting the rounded corners or whatever on those edges. So I would imagine if we get something kind of aimed at it correctly, we can get just some glancing angle, like details and stuff like that. How's this? Is this some weird? It's gonna slow down my video of using the GPU stuff for Karma. Start dropping frames with the webcam or whatever. Oof. It's pretty over the top. I think it's hard for me to tell, but I guess that those are shadows from the other boxes or whatever. Maybe something like that's okay for right now. Let's get back into the other light. I'm just going to try to line this up with the pattern or shape a little bit better. All right. So maybe we want to put a quick shader or material on it. I think with just the lighting stuff, I've kind of pushed everything so far for right now. If you guys want to grab the scene, you can check it out. And let's make a material library. I'm just going to put it up at the top. We can do the material X subnet. We can just replace this with the standard like that. And then I think we just need to go up here, do all geometry. So I think with the spec, it's picking up that other light a little bit differently. So yeah, being able to adjust like the roughness and that kind of stuff, it seems to be responding a little bit better, more interesting to the light this way. Let's get back to the other view. These panels are really slow to pop around. You gotta be careful. All right. Let's try getting our spotlight on this one as well. See, I'm not sure, maybe instead of let's just try this, instead of the spotlight, let's just make this light really big. Might be too big. Let's get back down a little bit. I don't know. I feel like that's one thing I'm definitely missing with Redshift. You have the more advanced shaping parameters and stuff like that. I think we should be able to get something cool with this. Which render do you think is worth learning more immediately? Arnold or Redshift? I think it depends. If you're working at smaller advertising studios and stuff like that, I would say that Redshift's more useful to learn, but bigger studios like feature film studios or all of those bigger places usually have render farms and are using Arnold pipelines or RenderMan or something like that. So I would say it just kind of depends on that. If you're just using a single machine, it might be a little difficult to like test sequences and stuff like that with Arnold as you're learning, just because it's still a little bit slower than Redshift. But overall, I think they're both very similar. My GPU always fail with Karma. I think the volume is too big to fit onto the GPU. Sometimes you might see some errors in the shell or in the console. Giving Karma a shot. Yeah, I'm still dipping my toe in. But yeah, I'm liking some of these highlights and stuff like that we're getting now. There's blue. It's pretty fancy. It's a nice cyberpunk or something like that. All right, let's go the other way with this, make it a little warmer. Still haven't crashed. I'm getting lucky here. Yeah, I am on the newer build, so yeah, that might be why things are a little bit more stable. I don't know if this camera should be punched in even more. I think let's do that and just make it a wider frame. I don't know how much we need this environment light. We already have kind of a two light system going on. I guess I was still doing a pretty good amount. The lens shader. Let me make this a bit smaller first. All right, that's looking a little bit better. A little bit more magenta in there. I think this camera is just a little bit out of focus. Sometimes if I'm setting the focus again, I'll just go really small. And then you can dial it really into where you want it. Maybe even lower here. Yeah, the shadow stuff is pretty cool. I think I can even, I guess this is still at 4. But yeah, the kind of GI, the subtle bounce light, all that stuff should be pretty helpful. Yeah, I don't know. I think that dome light is just a little bit too much right now, so I'm going to turn it off. So yeah, we'll put this focal plane up a little bit more. And then yeah, we can try out the lens shader. So you can make a material network. And then I think it's this physical, Karma physical lens. And then turn that on. Okay. So this should let you do like a extra controls if you want the anamorphic bokeh or bokeh. You can also do the polygonal, hexagonal, or pentagonal shutter shapes and stuff like that of it that should be pretty cool. Sometimes you can do this stuff, but it might be a little too too wonky. Get yourself into the fun house pretty quickly. But I think there's a ton of potential with this lens shader to do some cool kind of abstract scenes and stuff with it. That's pretty interesting. I think you just have to be really careful with these values. Because I have like a telephoto lens or whatever. Yeah, and then I think the other thing that's pretty nice is they have this just overall exposure stuff. That's pretty interesting. It's kind of like a post effects or like a V-Ray physical camera, that kind of stuff. You get definitely get some more photographic irregularities and stuff like that in your image and everything for sure. Lentil would work with all render engines. You can take a lens shader. Yeah, the work that Zeno did with that is amazing. But yeah, I think it's just for Arnold right now. Yeah, they do have some settings to mimic rolling shutter. I don't think I have enough motion or stuff going on, but over here you can see they have some sensor capture order or whatever. You play around with this tilt shift stuff as well, but I don't know how. Crazy it's gonna get. I think as well with this stuff I would want it to be really small values. Yeah, the lentil stuff is amazing. I think even in terms of render optimization, like it will work more quickly. Like usually it doesn't, renders don't sample like the lighting as evenly from the bokeh. So that's definitely the true closest you can get to actual photography with a renderer, I'd say. Ooh. These, you got to be real careful with these shift numbers. But yeah, I think if you do enough of them, you should be able to get like a tilt shift effect. Oh, whoa, whoa. Kind of like make stuff look like miniatures or something like that. Just getting into a wacky land. Something like that could be interesting. But yeah, it's definitely pretty nice to have these, not as many things as the redshift post effects, but it's definitely like a step in the right direction. Just quick lens shader like that, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I was hoping to get more highlights and stuff like that on the edges with the out of focus areas, but unfortunately they're not lighting up as I'm not getting like spec hits or highlights. I'm just going to go up to a higher version here. Let's put this thing up back in the camera. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, then if there's some final adjustments, maybe play around with different heights. Can get tons of crazy, interesting looks and stuff like that. Yeah, I was thinking maybe like these have everything raised up quite a bit when I was first setting this up, but it wasn't working that well. But I think now with the lighting set up the way it is, it's looking pretty cool. Let's see if we can just get a few tall ones. Ooh, look at that. I feel like my light is running out of batteries. Like I keep having to boost certain aspects of it. I don't really know what's going on. Sometimes that vignette and depth of field stuff can reduce like the intensity of some of these things. All right, I'm gonna start wrapping things up here. I don't know about these diffuse. So this should just be spec. I think the aberration here is kind of, oh, that stuff could have been a little too much. Yeah, I don't know, I was doing something weird. I don't think that I have ASUS turned on right now. But yeah, we can turn it on. So I'm usually just setting it like that in the preferences. If you guys want to take a look at this scene, you can grab it, and then I'll just reopen it with should have the ASUS profile added this time. So yeah, if you just get the color correction toolbar, then you can see that it is enabled now. Oops. Yeah, I think the kind of like tone mapping stuff that it can give you better highlights and stuff like that without completely blowing out everything. This thing just get too big. All right, so I'm just going to open up another scene view and do some more lighting through that. And we'll probably be wrapping up after that. But yeah, feel free to put in any questions or anything like that if you have them. So let's get the main beam. I'm just going to turn off the other one. Made it think about that, turning that light off for quite some time. Okay, I think that's starting to be a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. Yeah, I think some of this interactivity stuff could be a little bit better, especially compared to like Clarice or some of the other options out there, but just in terms of being able to do so much, like assembling the USD completely in here, it's definitely pretty powerful. Yeah, I don't know if we want to really go too crazy with that long shadows. Let's try making this light bigger. I don't know if we can, I guess we can't get as sharp of a cone that way though. The optics initializing, yeah, I think that's, I don't know 100% of the time, but I think it's usually like exchanging information to the GPU, and that's why the optics stuff will be initializing for so long. Okay, I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know what's going on with these colors, how it gets so that stuff gets so sensitive at a small angle, I think. Yeah, yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's just the logic they've implemented or something, but yeah, editing lights, it shouldn't take that long. All right, let's turn the other one back on. I'm going to turn the first one off. Yeah, I think this. I don't know. It's getting a little weird with that setting. Is there any benefit to use wrap Alembic cache versus normal file cache? I don't think there's any benefit. There might be like very specific edge cases, but overall I think that maybe I turn this one off for diffuse. Just get the specular highlights. Yeah, overall I think the overhead for Alembic will slow you down quite a bit. Like Houdini's the proprietary file format that they have is much better geared towards speed and performance. So yeah, I would definitely just stick with Houdini style or proprietary geometry or whatever, the BGO. Okay, so I think we can turn the other light back on. Yeah, I don't know if those. I think those edge highlights that I would put in might be a little detrimental. All right, maybe this is a little bit more balanced. I feel like the beam was just a little bit too big before. Yeah, the only last thing could be interesting to play with would be this bevel distance or roundness or whatever you want to call it. hate how it kicks you out of the camera when you go down into the too much clicking in and out of stuff. Okay. So playing around with this bevel. You might get more interesting highlights on the edges. I think that's definitely way too much, but maybe something like that. I think I kind of doubled it there. We could go up maybe a little bit higher. And then this geometry is pretty lightweight, so we might want to do another iteration of subdivision just to get some more kind of little detail in the geometry. Could try this randomization. Have some crooked. Ooh, that's the wrong parameter. You can see some of the crooked ones. I think it might be a little bit too much for this one. But yeah, I don't know. All that stuff could be fun. Play around with it for hours. Get lost. I'm gonna wrap this up now. So we could go maybe up full screen this. And let's just increase some of these samples. This is too many settings to get distracted wanting to play around with them and all that. We could try the bucket style renderer. I think we should be good with that for right now. Maybe go into the image viewport to really inspect the pixels or whatever. I don't know, I'd expect this to kick out the buckets. Yeah, no worries. Feel free to ask another question. Yeah, the lens effects, they're still on. I turned them down quite a bit. You might see some aberrations and stuff like that. Yeah, it's possible the buckets don't work. But yeah, the lens effects are still on. They're definitely giving me that aberration chromatic business. You can play around with them. Ooh. So wide one. All right. So I'm just gonna save this where it is. It seems to be rendering pretty quickly. I don't know why it still can't utilize these optics devices fully, but we'll just save it. Do another scene share if you guys want to grab it. I'm gonna